What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So with the start of a brand new year, there are all kinds of expectations and predictions around what kind of games are going to be released. And now we're starting to see information get out there around really one of the biggest publishers in gaming with Microsoft. And of course, that means basically the other consoles as well will be involved. And we'll take a look at all of that here today. Also, we are going to be talking about a new feature that's quietly been announced for the Switch 2. And to me, it kind of harkens back to the old days in a way, to even the Nintendo 64. And we also have next generation to talk about with Microsoft and what exactly their plans are for the next Xbox, and yes, that Windows integration. All that and more. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button, helps out a ton. And if you're new here to the Spawn Wave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. Guys, we're here every weekday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern time, keeping you up to date in the world of gaming with all the news happening. So even if you don't get a notification in the morning, just know there's probably a video here for you to check out. And we're gonna start today with new controllers and console covers that were announced by Sony. Now these we can see over on PlayStation Blog. They list them out with Techno Red, Remix Green, and Rhythm Blue. And this is it's kind of an interesting style to where it's a gradient going from black to whatever color it is, whether it's that red or that green. And I do like the style. I feel like I have to see it in person, but it also looks to be pretty glossy. So especially glossy black that gets scratched up pretty quickly, although it's kind of like half, or in the case of the console covers, maybe a third of it. Anyway, these will be releasing starting on March 12th, with pre-orders beginning January 16th. All right, and they have prices for these with the controllers at $85 and then the console covers at $75. So yeah, we're in that world of controllers almost at that $100 price point, and here we are now with these special edition DualSense controllers at $85. I do think they look pretty good, and I honestly, if I had to pick one, probably that Techno Red, just the gradient black to red, I think looks pretty cool. But also, do I need another DualSense controller? Probably not, but I guess if you're in the market for a new one and you are interested in these gradients, just look towards March to pick one up. Also, do you remember the closeout for the Game Awards in December? It was Highguard, and it certainly didn't go over great online, to the point where any of the videos that came out around it for promotion were downvoted into oblivion. We were looking at 95% dislike ratio. It was crazy stuff, and I think if it wasn't the closeout and it was just sort of mixed in somewhere, probably wouldn't get that kind of spotlight on it. And well, now it's strange because the account that should be advertising the game hasn't said anything about it. And it's even to where a lot of outlets are writing about this specifically. Like, you can see this headline. This is from Instant Gaming. It says, "There's a deafening silence about Highguard less than 3 weeks before its release." And I checked on social media. Their last message that they put out there was December 11th. Yeah, this game is coming out, as they mentioned, in a few weeks. And that was part of the sales pitch when they showed it off was, hey, it's out soon. It's not a game you have to wait years for. You can play it to start off 2026. And it's like the crowd went mild because it was a live service, Overwatch hero shooter style looking thing. So I don't know. We'll see what happens with Highguard. Some are wondering if it's just getting delayed at this time. But again, that was part of the marketing, is that you'll be able to play it soon, which makes me think the game is just ready to go. So now it comes down to what's the market reaction and sentiment around it? Not great. So maybe delaying it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. We'll see. Oh, and probably in a shock to no one, GameStop seems to be closing down more stores right now. We can see this, and this is over on fastcompany.com, saying the video game retailer is closing stores in numerous states this month, according to local media reports and emails and store signage shared by customers on social media. And this, as they say, is part of its ongoing effort to reduce costs and adapt changes in shopping habits. And we seem to hear, I feel like every other year, that GameStop is just closing down stores. And I kind of feel like most of the time when we hear about these wave of store closures are probably when their leases are up or about to be up and they want to buy out the last couple of months, just do it in one big sweeping layoff or store closure all at once. And it's just, what are you going to do with GameStop at this time? It's pretty clear a lot of stuff is going to the side of digital. And if you walk into a GameStop, even they know it, because half the store is just collectibles. And that might be putting it mildly. Might be even more than that at this time. But yeah, just more GameStops going away. I guess check in your local area to see if your GameStop has the big store closing signs up now, because if you have pre-orders there, you might want to get that worked out. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with 2026, with the Xbox. And, well, with Xbox comes basically PlayStation 5 and Switch 2, as well as PC. That's been a given for a while. The fact that we are looking at Xbox and Microsoft as also PlayStation and Switch 2 releases, it makes things very interesting going into the new year. And now there's an entire write-up in what really amounts to a report from Windows Central, as they are getting into a bunch of plans for Microsoft that aren't necessarily predictions, as they themselves, Jez Corden says, yeah, I kind of have some sources around this thing and this game that's in development and this release that we're kind of thinking is close. So I figure we go down the list of all different things that were talked about, and then there's still even more stuff on top of that in the report. So I'll leave that down below in the sources if you wanted to skim through that as well. But we'll start here at the top. And that, of course, has to do with that Xbox Developer Direct. We're expecting one in January, mostly because Matt Booty already told us that there would be one in January. It really comes down to now what they're going to show off here, because we're expecting the big four from Microsoft to appear in 2026, that being Fable, Forza, Gears, and Halo. So this year should be massive for Microsoft, and it makes sense. It's the 25th anniversary for the Xbox brand, so you would want to have, go figure, games. So less TV, right? More games. Let's remember that part of Xbox, not the weird stuff that was happening on the Xbox One. So this should be a lot of fun, especially if they're ready to show up with, I'd say, at least two of those four. All right, so Fable, I think, is a given. You kind of need Fable to be here. I mean, it got pushed into 2026. We need some confidence. I feel like behind this release, that one makes sense. And then the others, I'm thinking maybe Gears. That should be a big showpiece for them, and I think would even be a good closeout, since we haven't seen gameplay or anything really in that regard. We've seen kind of the cutscenes and stuff they've shown off to set the mood for the game. So Fable and then Gears would be awesome for January's Developer Direct, and then probably a few other little surprises. And I mean, Toys for Bob is out there somewhere, right, with contract and Microsoft. Now, they also talk about Fallout. Fallout 5, we figure it's greenlit, but it's going to take a while. That was mentioned. However, Fallout 3 Remaster, that would be kind of similar to the Oblivion remaster that we just got this last year, that seems to be in the works. Nate also backed this claim up. And then, get this, New Vegas seems to be something planned or in the works as well. It does make sense to have some Fallout stuff ready to roll with the current Amazon series that's very, very popular right now, and Season 2 that's going on. So have some of these Fallout games ready to go. I think that'd be great. BlizzCon 2026, apparently the big headliner, is going to be a StarCraft third-person shooter. And I mean, a spinoff like that is markedly different from the RTS or top-down style. That'd be actually really cool, just to see what they come up with here. And then Wolfenstein 3 is reportedly in development, and we figure at Machine Games. So curious to see what they do with that one, coming off of Indiana Jones. Ninja Theory, their next game will be more combat involved compared to Hellblade, and Hellblade is a very good-looking game. And no one can really push back on that. Yeah, it's a great-looking game. But then you get to the gameplay and the combat, and it's a bit more divisive. And I can understand that, really. And then also the game's like 5 hours long or something. But for a technical showcase, it's a really cool title. I'm curious what their next game would look like then, being more combat involved. Would it go towards the Hellblade realism? Would there be a different sort of art style they would introduce? So at least something interesting there for Ninja Theory. And as for new Xbox hardware, thinking the Elite Series 3 controller. That's been floated for quite some time. Not surprising to hear about it here, but remember before we were talking about their next generation system for 2026. Unfortunately, that's probably not going to be the case with the DRAM shortage that's ongoing. So it seems like maybe that gets pushed out into 2027 when things can maybe be resolved somewhat, or at least more negotiations can happen and we can get to a more, I guess, normalized price point. That'll probably still be higher than expected. But I will say, if Microsoft can pull a lot of this stuff off, they should be set up for a good, very good 2026, especially since we're going to probably see the PS5 logo pop up quite a bit, and based on the fact that dev kits are being more resolved for the Switch 2, especially on Microsoft's side, with things like Call of Duty apparently looming for Nintendo's new hybrid system, probably going to see that Switch 2 logo pop up quite a bit as well, and that just tells me on the software side, not the hardware side, the software side, Microsoft should do very, very well. Next up, let's talk about Nintendo and that Switch 2 with an interesting feature that was quietly announced the other day. And this has to do with voice recognition, and we're going to read through this, and I'm going to tell you which game this immediately reminded me of from, like decades ago. But we can see this. This is over on Automata Media. It says, on January 7th, Hitachi launched its proprietary Ruby Spotter voice command recognition software for the Switch 2. With it, game developers will be able to incorporate voice-based features that make use of the console's built-in microphone. Yeah, so the voice commands, it seemed like it was mostly in like cars and stuff. So it would be able to recognize what you're saying and then execute a command. So I'm hearing this and I'm like, oh yeah, Hey You Pikachu from the Nintendo 64. Maybe it won't be terrible, but we'll see if the Pokemon Company wants to play around with something like that. Go on to say, according to Hitachi, Ruby Spotter supports over 40 languages and boasts high recognition accuracy, even in environments with lots of noise. The company even factored in players who aren't using a headset, as the software takes into account loud sound effects and background music. To ensure that it doesn't affect game performance, Ruby Spotter requires minimal CPU load and memory consumption from the Switch 2. So the idea of canceling out background noise, that's not a new concept or idea. The PS5 with the DualSense controller, while it's not the best audio quality, it can do that. It can cancel out background noise. And I will say, even right now with the Switch 2, Game Chat does a pretty good job of that as well. This just seems like it'd be more proprietary on their end for this, the company. And it's interesting to have it set up of all the different languages that would also be available. And I think this, while I joke about it being Hey You Pikachu related, maybe even more along the lines of accessibility in some of these games. So maybe a game comes out and has the ability to do a lot of stuff through voice command or navigate menus with your voice as opposed to having to scroll around or anything like that. That would actually make a lot of sense, especially I'm thinking even of these like choose your own adventure visual novel style games even. Like there are a lot of applications for something like this, especially if it is more advanced and supports, they said 40 languages out of the box. So there is a lot of stuff here that of course developers can use on that accessibility side. But I guess even in games, I mean the Switch 2, if you're playing docked mode, does have a microphone that's just available to it right then and there. And again, based on Game Chat, does a pretty good job at least being able to hear you even in a somewhat louder or noisier room. So we'll see if this pops up at some point in the future, but it'd be interesting to see if we do get that Hey You Pikachu game, because they can go for redemption to where Pikachu can hear you on at least the third try this time. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about that next generation Xbox experience that has everyone's favorite operating system at the center of it, Windows. Windows 11's been going through it quite a bit recently because of all the AI integration, and I mean, it feels like bloat on top of bloat, and the system just being pretty slow out of the box now more than ever. The days of Windows XP and what I thought was a pretty snappy and more simplistic OS are definitely behind us, but the idea Microsoft seems to have is trying to tie everything together under one OS, this Windows gaming hybrid setup. And we have some more news around this with, again, Windows Central and Jez Corden. We can see this. And they say, in partnership with AMD, the next Xbox will utilize the Windows 11 full screen experience with the Xbox PC app to deliver its console interface. Microsoft is working on major updates to the Xbox PC app to accommodate this, bringing it more closely in line with what Xbox console players will expect when engaging on a device with a device on their TV, rather than at their desk. Where it diverges with a traditional PC is in its ability to actually run games compatible with Xbox One and Xbox Series X and S. Existing Xbox console users' libraries will come forward with them to the new Xbox as Microsoft continues to commit backward compatibility in a big way. And they kind of have to do that. It would be very, very weird if they said, here's the next Xbox powered by Windows that doesn't play your old Xbox games or your current Xbox library. And I do think this is one of the biggest factors, the thing that's not holding them up, but taking the most time, is making sure all these games work. Like from your entire library going back even to that original Xbox, as we do have games that are backwards compatible now with a new chipset and this OS coming in where they're gonna have Windows integrated across the board. That is a pretty serious undertaking that Microsoft has to figure out and accomplish. That would be such a strange situation for them to try to navigate and explain. But then also, I'm thinking on the Windows side for PC, if this is under just one OS, would we also be looking at a PC with the Xbox Microsoft full screen experience being able to do the same thing? Or is this going to be tied into this AMD chip that Microsoft is developing alongside of AMD to accommodate what they're trying to do with backwards compatibility? Because that will also be a weird thing to try to explain. And it's just, if they want to do Xbox Play Anywhere, they really got to go all in and figure out Xbox Play Anywhere. Like, all the games that show up on this OS work on PC and it works on Xbox out of the box. Like, you don't have to do any weird tinkering or loopholes you have to figure out or just hoops you got to jump through. It has to be easy, because that is the biggest selling point of a console. It's ease of use, its approachability, and it just fitting right in for the living room. I mean, I don't expect you to have to break out a keyboard for your console, but if we got to that point with the Xbox, that's not going to be great. I'm not expecting it. I think they'll figure at least that end out. It's also going to be on the PC side with the backwards compatibility. Good news, though. It seems like your old library will indeed follow you forward to the next generation Xbox. And now we just have to think about what the next system will actually cost in the current climate with the DRAM shortage. And before we go to the comment of the day, we'll take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday. And that's Game of the Year Madness, Day 15, Dispatch versus Silent Hill F. Okay, Dispatch is kind of eking out a win here, 53% to 47%. And yeah, I probably would have voted with Dispatch. Silent Hill F is fine. It's weird. The game itself and I think the atmosphere is great. The combat's just been like, I mean, I haven't looked at Silent Hill as, wow, the combat is incredible in these games. I don't know, Silent Hill F is somehow, for me anyway, just a bit worse than like what the average has been for the entire franchise. Just the atmosphere is very, very good. Dispatch was just a blast. I enjoyed it. It was like 6 or 7 hours, but it was a lot of fun to go through and then also go back and replay some of the parts. So I think overall it ended up being like a 10-hour experience, like trying to get as many of the, and I didn't platinum it or anything, but I did go through a couple of the other choices that you could do, I'll say, in the game. And I do think it's worth checking out. People are saying there's a demo right now on the PC side where I think it's the first episode you can check out. And that should hook you because it just sort of does the intro with the main character and the setup for the entire story. But Dispatch looks like moving on over Silent Hill F. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day as you're seeing here. This is from Keys, who says, how is that game still up this long? And talking about Anthem. I mean, they left it up for a while, and here's the thing. I know Anthem gets crushed online, and it wasn't a great game or anything. I think the flying, that initial jump out into the world, and it's your Iron Man for a bit there, that was a cool moment. But then the rest of the game just falls flat, I feel like anyway. Still, I do think the game should exist just for the future, whether it's just future generations that want to go back and check out the game. People want to do retrospectives on Anthem 20 years after its release and just be like, look how bad this game was. Or in true YouTube fashion 10 years later, this game was so misunderstood. But that's the thing. A game like this that is tied to online servers, and it seems like EA has no intention of resolving that or fixing it so you can play offline, it's just going to go away. But I don't think that should be the case, no matter really how bad a game is. I think it should still exist, even for just the history or preservation or whatever case you want to make there. But just because people bought the game, I mean, some bought it for full price at $60. Even if you have it physically, you pop it in, it's not going to work. And that just seems strange to me, like for the consumer perspective. So still, I would like to see Anthem just exist outright because of that, but it seems like EA is shutting that thing down, and even now they don't want you to download it anyway. So I guess see ya, Anthem, next week, unless something happens and EA goes, oh wait, we kind of have to keep this game up, or yeah, regulators come after us. So wow, look at that, we found the switch, and there you go, play it offline now. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. If you missed yesterday's Newswave, I'll leave it up here in a card. Or maybe you want to check out how your phone can actually play a lot of the old retro games, up to including the PlayStation 2 and the GameCube. I did a video checking that out, and I'll leave it right below as well. Thanks, guys, for watching, and I'll see you next time.